Okay, so we have seen, we started that is working with exception handling. I said you about working with exception handling. So this is what we have seen. At the time of developing application, you come across different types of errors. So first one is called as a compile time errors, and second one is called as a logical errors, and third one is called as what? Runtime errors. I said what is a compile time errors? All syntax errors are called as compile time errors. If there is a syntax error within the program, your program is not compiled. It will not generate which code? Byte code. So like this is a compile time error. And there is a logical errors. The errors occur during the execution of program or runtime. Okay. So these errors occur due to some wrong logic defined inside the program. So this wrong logic generates which error here? Wrong results. Example is you write a program for adding two numbers, but within the program you're doing what? Subtraction. So these errors must be rectified by whom? Programmer during development of application. So there is one more type of error called runtime errors, and these errors occurs during execution of program. Okay, these errors occurs during execution of program. These errors occurs because of wrong input given by program, wrong input given to program by end user. By default, if there is a wrong input given by end user, it generates technical error messages and which are not understood by end user. So whenever there is a runtime error, program execution is what? Terminated abnormally. So what happens when runtime error occurs? So Python program create which object here? Error object or exception object and hand over to which one? PVM. And this error object contains technical message. So PVM search for error handler or exception handler. If it doesn't found error handler or exception handler, it gives to the default exception handler of PVM. And PVM read error message from exception object and terminates execution of what? Program. So default exception handler provided by PVM does not avoid abnormal termination of program. So what is the need of user defined exception handlers? So to convert technical error message into user defined error message and to avoid abnormal termination of program. So what is exception is? Exception is which error here? Runtime error. Exception is a type or class whose object is created during runtime. So to avoid abnormal termination of program, you are trying to use exception handlers. Exception handlers are error handlers. Now these are the keywords. Keywords used in exception. Keywords used in exception handling. Keywords used in exception handling here. So what are the keywords used in exception handling? Keywords used in exception handling. So what are the keywords? What are the keywords? What are the keywords used in exception handling? Keywords used in exception handling or error handling. So every exception is one type. Okay, so these are the keywords used. There's a try, and there is except, and there is finally, and one more is a raise. So how many keywords you are using? Some 4 keywords are used in exception handling. So that is try, except, finally. So try, except, finally. Okay, try, except, finally. And there is one more. There's one more, and that is called as, what is that? Rise. Rise is also one keyword. Rise is also one keyword. Okay, so these are the keywords used in what your exception handling. These are the keywords which are used in exception handling. Okay, so first one is, so what is the need of exception handling is, we have seen, like to avoid abnormal termination of program and to convert technical error messages into what? User defined error messages. To convert technical error messages into user defined error messages. Okay, so for that, yes. So the first one is, which is called as a try block. The first one is a try block. Try block. So keywords used in exception handling or error handling. So first one is try block. So this block this block contains statements. So which has to be monitored, which has to be monitored for, which has to be monitored for which one? Exception, which has to be monitored for exception handling. Or you can say this block contains statements. This block contains statements which generates, okay, which generate exception or error during runtime. Okay, this block contain exception or error. Okay, this block contains statements which generate exception or error during what? Runtime. So whatever statements which raises error during runtime, that statements you are including in which block? Try block. Whichever statement generates error during runtime, that statements you are including inside which block? Try block. Whichever statements raises error during runtime, that statements you are including inside which block? Try block. So you are trying to write statement 1 and statement 2. So this block contains statements which has to be monitored for exception handling, or this block contains statements which generate exception or error during what? Runtime. So this is a try block. So if within try block, you write only the statements which generates errors. And when there is an error in try block, it is handled by which one? Except block. So except block, except is user defined user define exception handler or error handler, user define exception handler or error handler. This block, except block handle error generated by which block? Try block. Okay, it means whenever there is an error, whenever, so whenever there is an error, inside which block? Try block. It is handled by, it is handled by, it is handled by, it is handled by which block? Except block. So except block. So except is called as a error handler block. If there is an error in try block, it is handled by which block? Except block. So try block followed by try block followed by one or more than one except block. Try block followed by one or more than one except block. Okay, try block followed by one or more than one except block. So this is a try block, and you are including statements in this. So there is a statement 1, there is a statement 2, and followed by which block here? Except block. Except it followed by error type. So it will try to handle which type of error? This except block handle which type of error? Okay, error type. I said every error type is a class. Okay, statement 3, you can include number of statements. Or you can write in except block, what do you write? In except block contain or except block display user defined what here? Error. Except block display user defined error message. Means what you write in except block, why that error is occurred? It's nothing but you are converting technical error message into what? User defined error message by writing that message in which block? Except block. Where you are writing that message inside except block. You are converting technical error message into user defined error message by writing that statements in which block? Except block. Except it followed by which one? Error type. You include multiple statements, that is statement 3 and statement 4. So except block display user defined error message. Except block display user defined error message, right? For example, okay, for example, so this is your main function. So where I'm writing a program without handling the error. So input enter first number. I just write here enter first number, enter first number, and n2 equal to integer of input. I'm saying enter which one? Second number, and n3 equal to n1 divided by what here? N2, and print. Okay, result is a display which value here? N3 value. A displayed which value? N3 value. And displayed N3 value. I try to display N3 value. Okay. So I try to display N3 value. So once I run this, now it's asking enter first number, which is 4. First number is 4. I try to input first number, means the value of n1 is 4. So what is the value of n1? The value of n1 is 4. Okay. Okay, the value of n1 is 4. The value of n2 is the value of n2. The value of n1 is 4 and the value of n2 is what? 2. Then n3 equal to n1 divided by n2. It's nothing but 4 divided by 2. 4 divided by 2. What is the value of n3? What is the value of n3? 2.0. The value of n3 is what here? 2.0. Okay, 2.0. The value of n3 is a 2.0. So that is 4 divided by 2. So what is the result I'll get here? The result what I'll get is 2.0. But is it any error is generated? No, there's no error is generated because whatever input given is correct, right? So again, I try to execute. This time I'm trying to enter n1 value 6. I try to input n1 value as 6 and n2 value as a 3. Now 6 divided by 3. 6 divided by 3. What is the result is given? 2.0. 6 divided by 3 is what here? 2.0. Suppose I try to execute again. I try to execute again, but this time I try to enter the first number. I try to input the first number as a 5 and second number I've given what? 0. So now Python cannot divide. According to the Python, so what is the value of n1? 5. What is the value of n2? 0. So Python cannot divide a number with what? 0. Then immediately your PVM create one exception object. This is which type of operation here? Division operation. Then Python will create object of which class? 0 division error. It will create object of which type? 0 division error. Is a 0 division error? Is it a predefined error type or user defined? Predefined. So errors are two types. One is predefined and one more is what? User defined. So is it this error type is a predefined or user defined? Predefined. So 0 division error, and this error object is given to PVM. This error object is given to which one? PVM. So what PVM look for is the PVM search for exception handler. Is it any error handler within the function? No. If there is no error handler within the function, then this PVM, okay, PVM is having his own error handler. What is it error handler? Default error handler. What default error handler will do is, it will read this exception information. So what this error object is having? This error object is having which one? Error message. So this default exception handler will read this error message. And after reading the error message, what will happen? It terminates. After reading error message, what will happen? It terminates execution of what? Program. After that, it terminates the execution of program. It terminates. What will it do is it terminates the execution of program. It will not continue. Now you can see. Is it your program is terminated or continued? Terminated. But this is a complete information given by PVM. Default exception handler. It is given complete information in which line number error is there. Okay, in which module, in which line number, which function. Okay, what is the error type? Now this complete information is displayed. But is it this information? Is it this error is understood by end user? No. Then what you are doing is you are handling this error and you are converting this predefined error message, a technical error message into what? User defined. So how you are doing? You are trying to do it by writing which one here? Try block. You are handling the error by writing inside which block? Try block. So inside the try block, I try to write N3 equal to N1 divided by N2. So print result is N3 and then I write here except. So you are writing only the statements which generate errors. Which statements you are writing in try block? In try block you are writing in try block you are writing only the statements which generates error. Okay, now this is a statement which generate what? Error. Now this statement generate which error? Zero division error. The statement generate which error? Zero division error. So you are trying to say zero division error. So this except block handle which type of error? Zero division error. And here you are trying to display the message. This is user defined error message saying that cannot divide a number with what here? Zero. So is it error is handled or not handled? Handled. After that, your program execution is terminated or continued? Continued. Suppose if I write here one message continue, is it rest of the statements get executed or not? Yes. So the advantage of exception handling is to avoid abnormal termination of what? Program and converting that technical error messages into user defined error. So enter first number. First number is what here? 4. And second number is what here? 2. So 4 divided by 2, then print the value of N3 which is 2.0. Is it try block is executed or not executed? Is it try block is generated any error? No. On successful execution of try block, it will not execute which block? Except the block. On successful execution of try block, it will not execute which block? Except block. On successful execution of try block, it will not execute which block? Except block. On successful execution of try block, it will not execute except block. So what is the result here? 2.0. What is the result here? 2.0. And then continue rest of the statements are not? Yes. Now if I try to run this, now next time enter the value of N1 as a 6, the value of N2 as what? 0. N1 value is a 6 and N2 value is what? 0. After that execution control is moved inside which block? Try block. And 6 divided by what? 0. Now this will generate which error? Zero division error. So is it any exception? Is it any except block with zero division error? Yes. So what will happen again? your your function will create which object? Exception object. So which exception object it will create? Zero division. It will create which object? Zero division error object. And this zero division error object, this is zero division error object is given to, this is zero division error object is given to which one? PVM, that is Python virtual machine. So what Python virtual machine look for? Error handler. It will search for error handler. So what is it error handler here? Except. So PVM search for error handler with which type here? Zero division error. So is it zero division error is handled or not handled? Handled. Then it will display the message cannot divide a number with 0. Is it this is predefined message or user defined? User defined. So after displaying this message, will it continue the rest of the statements are terminated? Continue. Okay, it will continue the rest of the statements. It will continue the rest of the statements. Once you press enter, you can see cannot divide a number with 0. And is it continued or not? Yes. Yes, you have to run the program by giving different inputs. Okay, you have to run the program by giving different inputs. You have to run the program by giving different inputs. That is what I'm telling you. You have to test your program by giving different inputs. And that you come across, which statement will raise which error. To handle error, we should know which type of error it rises, right? Okay. Suppose when we work with, when you learn, when you practice, when you learn, you come across different types of errors. For example, integer function is there. To the integer function, if I give the input as 45, will it convert this string into integer or not? Yes. Suppose to the integer function, if I'm giving ABC, will it convert ABC to integer? No. It generates what? Error. Is it runtime error or not? Yes. What is it error? Value error. Means when you learn integer, you learn even what kind of error generated by integer. When you learn integer function, you also learn what type of error generated by which one? Integer. So whenever you are using integer function, you have to handle this error or not? Yes. Whenever you are using integer function, you have to handle this error. Because if you give wrong input to this integer function, it generates which error? Value error. So that you come across when you test, when you learn, or when you see the documentation of each and every function, right? So here, when you're talking about errors, right? These errors or these exceptions are two types. One is a predefined, and one more is what? User defined. Exception types. So types of exceptions here. Types of exceptions are what is it? Errors. So I said now there are two types of exceptions or errors. One is predefined exception types. Predefined exception types or exceptions. And second one is user defined exception types or exceptions. First one is predefined exception types. Second one is user defined exception types. What is this predefined exception types? Okay, predefined means these are the types which are provided by Python libraries. Okay, built-in exception types. Okay, these are inbuilt exception types. Inbuilt exception types are classes. Inbuilt exception types are classes which are provided by Python. And these inbuilt exception types, exception types are used by Python library functions. Python library functions. For example, value error is there. Who's using value error? Who generate value error? Integer function. So is it value error is predefined or user defined? Predefined. So this error is generated by which function? Integer function. Okay, this is a predefined type and it is used by which function? Integer function. In the same way, I'm trying to write float of ABC. Even though if I'm writing float of ABC, this will also generate error or not? Yes, it is also generate error. What is it error? Value error. It means value error is a predefined error type or user defined? Predefined. And these error types are used by which functions? Inbuilt functions or library functions. For example, list is there. If I'm saying list of 10, is it 10 can be converted into list? No. 10 cannot be converted into what? List. You can convert collection of values into what? List. Not one value into what? List. So immediately it will give an which error? Type error. Is a type error is a predefined error type or user defined? Predefined. And this is used by which function? List function. List function. So these are inbuilt exception types or classes which are provided by Python. And these inbuilt exception types are used by Python library functions. Okay. Example is like you are saying zero division error. Zero division error. Okay, what is that here? Type error. Okay, what is that here? Value error. Okay, what is that here? Key error. Key error. All these are which types here? Predefined error types. Now you also find user defined exception types. So when existing error types doesn't fulfill, then you write your own error types. Okay, these are user defined exception types. Okay, or user defined. I mean, these exception types are built by or created by programmer. Okay, these exception types are created by programmer. Example is you may build your own error types. For example, login error. For example, login error. Suppose insufficient balance error, login error, insufficient balance error. Okay, invalid, invalid pin error, invalid pin error. Now, these are the errors you build it and you use in your application. So these error types are called which errors here? User defined. Suppose you are developing application for a bank, you may come across different types of errors, right? Suppose if you enter invalid username and password, then it generates which error? Login error. Suppose you are writing login function. If you give wrong input to the login function, so that login function will generate one error. What type of error it generates? Login error. You enter invalid pin, then verifying pin is one operation. If the pin is invalid, then you generate one error. What is that error you generate? Invalid pin error. Like integer function is generating error. Integer function is generating error. Which error it is generating? Value error, because are you given wrong input to integer or not? Yes. In the same way, float function is generating one error. Which function, which error is generating? Value error. In the same way, list function is generating error. When you give wrong input to any function, is it generating error or not? Yes. So the advantage of error handling is again, see the advantage of again error handling is separation of okay business logic and what is that error logic. Again, one more advantage of exception handling is okay. One more advantage of exception handling or error handling is separation of business logic and what? Error logic. Advantage of error handling is separation of business logic and what? Error logic. You're separating the business logic and what? Error logic. It means if integer function is having a logic for converting the string to what? Integer. Float function is having a logic to convert this string to what? Float. But if any error is there in integer function, is it that error is handled by the integer? No. It has to be handled by which one? Caller. It means integer function is having only a business logic. It is having only a logic for conversion, but it doesn't have any logic for what? Handling. Why? Because handling the errors might be various from one situation to another. Okay, handling the errors might be various from one situation to what? Another. So in one situation, you handle this error in one type. In another situation, you handle this error in what? Another type. Because of that, the error handling logic is not written inside what? Integer. That should be handled by which one? Caller. That should be handled by which one? Caller. So maintaining your application becomes what? Easy. So the advantage of error handling is separation of business logic and what? Error logic. So function contain a business logic, but doesn't have any logic to handle what? Errors. So who will handle the errors? Handled by caller. Who will handle the error? The error is handled by the caller. Okay. So that is what you mean by predefined and user defined, right? So try block followed by which block? Except block. But you can write a try block with one or more than one except block. So try block with multiple except blocks. Try block with multiple except blocks. You can write a try block with only one except block, or you can write a try block with multiple except blocks. You can write a try block with one except block, or you can write a try block with multiple except blocks. So try block with multiple except blocks. If try block generate, if try block generates more than one exception, or error, it is handled. It is handled by writing. It is handled by writing multiple. It is handled by writing multiple except blocks. It is handled by writing multiple except block. So try block with multiple except blocks. If try block generate more than one exception, it is handled by writing multiple except blocks. So when you write a try block with multiple except blocks, if try block generate more than one exception, okay. Now this is a syntax of it. You are writing a try block. So how you are writing it? This is a syntax here. You are writing a try block, try block, and inside this you are including statements. There's a statement 1 and statement 2, and followed by except block, and there is an exception type. There's an exception type, and where you include again statements, again except block, and again which one here? Exception type. Exception type, right? So it means you are writing multiple. You are trying to write multiple except blocks. For example, if you see the previous one, so in this example, we try to handle only one error. Which error we handle? Zero division error. Suppose if I run this, enter first number is 5 and 2. So fine, result is 2.5 and continue. Is it executed except block? No. So enter the first number, I said 4 and 0. 4 and 0. Is it this error is handled or not? Yes. So cannot divide a number with what? 0. And is it continued or not? Yes. So I try to execute. Enter first number, I said 5, but second number I have given ABC. So what is the input I have given here? ABC. So what is the value sent to integer function here? ABC. Is it this ABC can be converted to integer? No. Then immediately tries this which error? Value error. Immediately tries this which error? Value error, right? Immediately tries this value error. But is it this error is handled or not handled? Not handled. Value error is handled or not handled? Not handled. So what do you have to do? You have to handle it or not? Yes. This value error is not handled. You have to handle this value error. You have to handle this value error. Okay. Then what do you do it? Even these statements also. Even these statements also you'll try to include inside which block? Try block. Even these statements also you include within the try block. Now your try block is having multiple statements. Your try block is having multiple statements. So your try block is having multiple statements. But this statement rises which error? zero division error. And this statement will raise which error? Value error. Then I'm writing one more except block. I'm writing one more except block with which type of error? Value error. And here I'm saying values must be of type. Values must be of type. Values must be of type which one? Integer. Values must be of type which one? Integer. So if you run this, I enter first number which is ABC. Enter the first number as what? ABC. So what is the input given to this program? ABC. So the value of N1 is what? ABC. What is the value of N1 here? ABC. Input is ABC, and this ABC is given to which function? Integer function. But is it integer function can convert this ABC into integer? No. Then immediately this integer function generate one error. This integer function generate one error. Generating error is nothing but rising error, or generating error is nothing but creating exception object. Creating exception object and giving to which one? PVM. Okay. Creating exception object and giving to the PVM is called as generating exception. Creating exception object and giving to the PVM is called as generating exception. Creating exception object and giving to a PVM is called as what? Generating exception. Generating exception. So which type of exception is generated here? Value error. Integer function is generated which exception? Value error. Okay, then what PVM will do? It will try to identify, is it any exception handler? Is it any exception handler with of which type? Value error. So is it value error is equal to zero division error? No. Then check for next except block. Is it value error is equal to value error? Yes. Then is it this error is handled or not handled? Handled. If the error is not handled, what will happen? It is given to the default error handler. But that default error handler, will it continue or terminates? Terminates. The default error handler, will it continue or terminates? Terminates. That will not continue. What will happen? That will terminates it. It will not terminate. It will not continue. It will terminate. Right? So to avoid that, we need to write which one? Error handlers. Right? So in this case, if I enter ABC, is it continued or terminated? Continued, because is it error is handled or not handled? Handled. Now you can see value must be of type which one? Integer. Suppose if you put inside a loop, it will keep on execution, right? It will ask again, input first number and what? Second number. That logic also you can write inside a except block, right? Yes. If I try to execute again, this time enter the first number as 4, second number as what? 0. Is it zero division error is handled or not? Yes. This is also handled. It means whatever errors you get during runtime, everything should be handled. If your program doesn't handle the errors, it means your program is not completely developed. Your program is not completely developed. Your program is partially developed. It's not completely developed. Your program is what? Partially developed. So it is always required to handle which one? Errors. Okay, because you develop a software and that software is given to the end user, and end user may give different inputs, and your program should be in a position to handle. Your program should be in a position to handle all the errors. Your program should be in a position to handle which one? All the errors. If not, so every time whenever end user does a mistake, the program execution is what? Terminated. So that is not a good programming style, right? Okay, so try block, it is not only followed by one except block, you can write multiple except blocks. Multiple except blocks. You can write a try block with one except block. Try block with one except block. one except block to handle one except block, one except block to handle to handle what? To handle multiple error types. Okay, or multiple errors. I want to write only one except block to handle multiple errors. So that except block is called generic except block. Getting on it? That except block is called which except block? Generic except block. Suppose I try to handle zero division error in one except block, and I try to handle value error in what? Another except block. Now instead of writing value error and zero division error in separate blocks, I can write one except block which can handle any type of error. Which can handle any type of error. In that case, you write an except block without error type. You can write an except block without error type. You write a except block without error type. You write an except block without error type. Now try block with one except block to handle multiple errors. But actually this is not preferable. In application development, this is not preferable because the advantage of again exception handling is, okay, to group and differentiate error types. To group and differentiate what error types. It means if it is a zero division error, then you write a logic related with what? Zero division error. If it is a value error, then you write the logic related with what? Value error. Okay, then understanding this block is for handling which error? Zero division. This block is to handle which error? Value error. If you write all these errors in one block, then will it become a complex or not? Yes. So you never handle all the errors. You never handle all the errors by writing only one block. You write multiple blocks to handle what? Errors. Not one block. You write multiple blocks to handle what here? Errors. Not only one block, you write multiple blocks to handle which one? Errors. Okay, right? So that is called as a generic except block. In order to handle multiple errors, using one except block. Okay, in order to handle multiple errors using one except block, so we define except block without a type. Except block without a type. So this except block is called generic except block. This except block is called generic except block. Generic means without any type, and it is able to handle any type of error. Okay, it is able to handle any type of error. So I write here try block, and within try block you include statements. Which statements you include? The statements which generate what? Error. Whichever statement generates error, that statements you are writing in which block? Try block. Whichever statement generate error, that statements you are writing in try block, and followed by except block, statement 3, and I write here statement 4. So try block contain how many statements? 2 statements. But is it any except type is there? No. This you can call it as which except block, generic except block. But in this case, okay, in this case, this except block is generic. No, this except block handle which error? Zero division error. And this except block handle which error? Value error. But this except block handle which error? Any error. Okay, this except block handle which error? Any error. Because is it error type is defined or not defined? Not defined. Is it error type is defined or not defined? Not defined. So it is able to handle any type of error. This acceptor doesn't handle any error because it is not having any type, right? It is not having any type. So it is called as which accept block? Generic accept block. This is called as which accept block? Generic accept block, right? For example, again, now here I am not writing multiple accept blocks. Instead of writing multiple accept blocks, I am writing only one accept block without any type. Then here I need to write a message which is common, right? What message I have to display here? Because now this try block raises how many types of errors? Two types. One is value error and one more is zero division error. This try block raises how many types of errors? Two types of errors. One is a value error and one more is zero division error. Then here I need to write one statement. Here I need to write a statement that belongs to value error as well as what? Zero division. Then I have to write one common message. Okay. But print, okay, print, I'm saying print, okay, print, input must be what here? Integer. Input must be integer and should not be what? Should not be what? Zero. Input must be integer and should not be what? Zero. Now this is a message which belongs to both types of errors. What is it? You cannot input zero. You cannot input what here? Zero. And then next one is input must be which type? Integer type. Once I run this, enter first number. So first number is 5 and second number is 2. Execution of this program is successful or not? Yes. It means try block is raised any error. Is it try block is raised any error? No. Try block is not raised any error. Is it try block is raised any error? No. Try block is not raised any error. Try block is not raised any error, right? Try block is not raised any error. Okay, try block is not raised any error because try block is not raised any error because input is correct or wrong? Correct. I try to run this. Now this time I try to input 5 and I enter 0. So what is the value of n1? 5. And what is the value of n2? 0. Then 5 divided by 0 generates which error? Zero division error. Is it zero division? Is it any except block of type zero division? No. Then it is handled by which except block? Generic. And display the message. What is the message? Input must be integer and should not be 0. Okay, then I try to execute again. Okay, enter first number. First number is some 7 and second number is ABC. Is it able to convert ABC to integer? No. Then it generate which error? Value error. Is it any except block with the value error? No. Is it any except block with value error? No. Then what will happen? Input must be integer and should not be what? 0. Input must be integer and should not be what? 0. It means this is a message which is common, right? This message is a common for how many exceptions? 2 exceptions. But what to display? I mean, I want to display appropriate message because the end user doesn't know which mistake is done, right? I want to display appropriate message. Means if it is zero division, then I want to display the message belongs to what? Zero division. If it is value error, then I want to display the message belongs to what? Value error. Then can I read a technical error message or not? Yes. Okay, I can read technical error message and I can display it. Instead of displaying my message, I can read a technical error message and display it. Okay, then whenever there is an exception, it will create an exception object and give it to whom? PVM. That is Python virtual machine. Now, who's handling the exception object in this case? Python virtual machine. I want to read that exception object. I want to read that exception object held by Python virtual machine. How can I communicate with the Python virtual machine? By using one module. What is that module? Sys module. System. Sys module refers to which system? Runtime system. Sys module refers to which system here? Runtime system. Sys module refers to which system? Runtime system. Now, whenever there is an exception, create exception object and give it to whom? PVM. Is it PVM is holding exception object or not? Yes. I want to know what type of exception object held by PVM. Then I'll try to use sys dot exception info. There is one method. There is one function called exception info. Sys dot exception info. What is the name of the function is? What is the name of the function is? Exception info. Exception. Sys dot exception. Sys dot exception info here. Sys dot exception info. Sys dot exception info. You can see trace back objects. Trace back objects are nothing but see the exception object created by function. Okay, that object contain the complete information like in which function exception is occurred, in which line number exception is occurred, and everything is held by which object here? Exception object. Okay, and if you want to see that, you just use exception info. Exception info, it returns one tuple. Exception info is written one tuple. Exception info written one tuple. Now suppose I try to enter 4 and 0, then you can see it is a tuple which contain which type of error. Now try block is generated which type of error? Zero division. Okay, zero division. What is a message? Division by what? Zero. And what is the address of this particular object? And this is the address of this object. But I don't want to display this type and which one? Error object address. I want to display which one? Message. Then I'll try to say tuple. Tuple of which one? 1. Now, what is the second value in the tuple? Error message. What is the second value in the tuple? Error message. I'll try to enter 4 and 2. Is it generate any error? No. What is the result is displayed? 2.0. I run this and I'll try to enter 4 and 0. What is the message? Division by 0. Is it predefined error message or user defined? Predefined error message. If I run this, I'll try to say 3 and ABC. Can you convert this ABC to integer? No. Then generate which error? Value error. Is it this is predefined error message or user defined? Predefined. Predefined error message or technical error message hold by. Technical error message hold by which object? Exception object. But how you are getting that exception information? By using one module. What is the name of the module? Sys. And sys dot, what is the name of the function? Exception info. So this will return a tuple which contain exception object or exception generated by which block? Try block. Exception generated by try block. Who's holding which type of exception generated by try block? Python virtual machine. Can I get the information about that exception from Python virtual machine? Yes. How you communicate with the Python virtual machine? By using one module. What is the name of the module? Sys system. Runtime system is PVM and dot exception info. So that will return the tuple. And from tuple, you are trying to get what? Error message. So this is how you get information about exception. Hold by information about exception, hold by which one? Python virtual machine. So that is done by using sys dot. That is done by using sys dot. Sys dot, what is that? Exception info. Sys is a predefined module that represent runtime system. Okay, right? Now this is sys dot exception info. Sys is a predefined. Sys is what? Predefined module. Predefined module in Python. This module is used. This module is used to communicate with Python runtime system. And that Python runtime system is what here? PVM. This module is used to communicate with Python runtime system. So exception info, exe info is a function of sys module, which return tuple consists of exception what? Information. Hold by which one? Python virtual machine. So it return tuple consists of exception information hold by Python virtual machine, because whenever there is an exception in try block, it is handled by which block? Except block. But after generating exception, that exception object is given to whom? PVM, that is Python virtual machine. Okay. So just try to understand this. It's very simple, right? Then next is try block. It is handled by which block? Except block. If multiple exceptions are there in try block, it is handled by except block with one type. Multiple except blocks, or you can handle it by writing how many except blocks? Only one. So there is one more block which you can write with the try block. There is one more block which you can write with the try block. And what is that block here? Finally block. So there is another block. So what is that another block is? There is another block. And what is that another block is? Finally block. So here finally is not exception handler. 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 Okay, right. Finally is not exception handler. Okay, is not exception handler. Which one is called exception handler? Except block. But finally is only a block. Okay, finally is not exception handler. Finally is a block. Is a block which is executed after try block and which block? Except block. Finally is a block which is executed. Finally is a block which is executed after try block and except block. So finally is not exception handler. Finally is a block, and this block is executed after which block? Try block and which block? Except block. Okay, it is only a block which is executed after try block and which block? Except block. Executed after try block and except block. So that is called as which block here? Finally block. So finally is not exception handler. Finally is a block which is executed after try block and except block. Okay, but try block followed by, okay, try block followed by one finally block. You cannot write multiple finally blocks. One finally block. You cannot write multiple finally blocks. So generally finally block is used for deallocating resources. Okay, finally block is used for deallocating resources allocated within which block here? Try block. Finally block is used for deallocating resources allocated within what? Try block. Finally block is used for deallocating resources allocated within what? Try block. Okay, what is this resources? You allocate some resources in try block and you want to deallocate those resources. Then that kind of statements you'll be writing in which block here? Finally block. Resource deallocation related statements you are writing in which block here? Finally block. So finally is not exception handler. Finally is a block which is executed after try block and except block, and try block followed by one finally block, and finally block is used for deallocating resources allocated within what? Try block. So you have a different syntaxes for this finally block. You have a different syntaxes for this finally block. So this is syntax 1 and this is syntax 2. So you are writing a try block and then statements. You write try block statements and then except block, exception type, and then you write the statements and then which block? Finally block. So this is one syntax. Okay, finally block, and then you are writing statements. Okay, this is one syntax. The second one is try block and includes some statements here. Statement 1, statement 2. So this is a try block. Then you can write directly which block? Finally block, and include some statements. Statement 1, statement 2, and this is statement 3. So you have a multiple syntaxes. This is a syntax 1 and this is syntax 2. So in syntax 1, you are writing this try block, except the block, and then finally in syntax 2, you are writing only try block followed by which block here? Finally block. Here you are writing try block, except block, and then finally block. But here you are writing try block followed by which block? Finally block. Okay. So tomorrow I'll tell you how to work with this finally block, right? Yeah, we'll stop here today and tomorrow we'll continue this.